All right, let's get to our next voicemail here.
Hi, Robert and Nate. Patrick from Houston here. I'm calling with a question about preseason hype teams. It seems like this year's offseason darlings are the Lions, understandably so. They ended last year really well and, seems to have had a pretty good offseason, the draft being an exception. But every year it also seems like we have these off-season darlings that falter when the actual season happens. So I'm curious what to make of teams like the Lions going into the upcoming season. If you have any thoughts about kind of how to temper expectations, and if there's any like stats that we might be able to look at on these kind of preseason teams that have a bunch of hype, and how they do in the actual season. Love the show. Thanks a lot. Looking forward to the answer. Bye.
It's a great question. Here's my initial read on this. It's hard to get like actual numbers on it because it's hard to define what the preseason hype team was.
Right.
There was the year where the Browns, were really exciting, and that was just like a total miss with the Freddie Kitchens era. So I think that's some of it is that, okay, two different things. I think one thing that we do as a mistake is we ascribe late season success as a predictor of what is going to happen into the next season. We do this for teams. We do this for quarterbacks. It is not always the case. That's not how development and trajectory works. It's not always linear like that. So I think that's a mistake. One of the reasons I think the Lions are a little bit different than some of the other preseason hype teams that we often fall in love with is that a lot of that preseason hype is typically derived from star power and skill position players. The Lions hype is derived from the opposite of that. They don't have any star power or skill position players. That's not why people are excited about that.
I know.
So I think they're just a very different version of what this preseason darling sort of looks like. And that's why I think there's such an interesting entry into the history of these.
No, that it is. And also for me, it's focusing, I think we all do. And I'm part of this, way guilty of this sometimes, especially with my Mariners and Timberwolves fandom, is you only focus on what could go right, and as opposed to what could go wrong. What are the weaknesses that could go wrong? It's not everything is the Disco Stew meme. Like everything, not everyone's going to just keep going up, 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 up. It's not like that. It's like people, sorry, this is a side rant. People get frustrated about the stock market sometimes. They're like, well, oh, my stock went down. That's like, yeah, it's a stock market. It's not a stock upwards thing. Like everything go up and down. I think like even a successful year for the Lions this year might include 7 losses. Like they might go 10-7, and I would say that's a good year for the Lions. And I think that's what during the moment of the team of the hype is that in the middle of the season, it might not feel that way. Like it just, the preseason and the postseason. Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, they actually had a good year, but like they might lose 3 in a row. We go, man, this is a failure of a year. So just saying that sometimes that human element is a big, big part of this, but they had a lot of hype last year, the Lions specifically, the hard knock stuff, the overall friskiness of the team. Yeah. Dan Campbell was the favorite for coach of the year. Because probably a lot of that preseason hype
was they're going to be better than we expect them to be.
Yeah.
This is they're playing the Chiefs in the first game of the season on national television.
I know it's not
That's
fun.
an entirely different conversation.
Yeah.
And I do think, again, they're a little bit different, though, because all the examples I could think of that have been bad, right? The Chargers have been super hyped up over the last couple of years. Last year's Broncos had a 10.5 win over under before the season started. It's the second highest total in the NFL after the Bills and the Bucks. Okay, their Super Bowl odds. The Broncos last season, their Super Bowl odds were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams had better Super Bowl odds than the Broncos. That's it. Last year, they had better Super Bowl odds than the Bengals. They had better Super Bowl odds than the Eagles. The Broncos last year.
Wow.
And then going back to those Freddie Kitchens Browns teams, the 3 through line things with that. We underrated the potential failure of the offensive play caller dynamic and how it would play into the success of the team. Okay. Nathaniel Hackett last year with the Broncos, Freddie Kitchens with the Browns teams, and what the Joe Lombardi experience was like with the Chargers. That's an aspect of the Lions that you feel best about.
Yep.
So that it's again, they're just a very different version than we're used to seeing with these teams who get a lot of publicity and a lot of excitement around them heading into a season. Again, there are plenty of downsides though.
Yep.
If they don't find weapons, the offense stagnates, that the structure of it can't carry it to the same degree it did before. Jameson Williams doesn't click into place. I did Mina's show this week talking about the pivot players and X factors on all the NFC teams as non-quarterbacks. Jameson Williams was mine for the Lions for this exact reason.
Good
and
answer.
who knows what's going to happen with the secondary and the defense
And the front seven.
They don't find another. They didn't find another pass rusher. They get hurt at corner, and suddenly they get really thin there. So I think that it's similar, like you're saying, where we have to explore what the downsides are, but they do feel like a slightly different version of this kind of team for a couple different reasons.
Yeah, even like the Dream Team Eagles team. That's the year that Andy Reid moved his offensive line coach to defensive coordinator. You know what I mean? So it's just whoa, it doesn't matter. Look at all the talent, all the players, and that's, we're talking about offensive play caller, but even defensive play caller as well. But yeah, for the Lions, I think everything you just laid out would be my quote unquote, this is what could go wrong. Do they have enough pass catchers to scare people? Do they have a front seven that could hold up for 60 plays a game? I think you're speaking of secondary depth as well. So those are just for that specific case. But I love that point you're making, is that the usual downfalls, the head coach gets guys to play hard for him. That's one good thing. That's another thing that sometimes is like a guy like Freddie Kitchens, a couple of weeks in, all of a sudden everyone's like, oh, this isn't the guy, we're out. So you get that kind of human element apart. Players like him. Okay, then offense coordinator, great point. Offensive line is one of the strengths of the team. So that's usually another downfall of this team.
We always forget the Lions when we're doing these teams, and the Lions are not like that. The Lions' best position group arguably is their offensive line.
Right. So no, all good points. But it's I think for me, if you're just talking in general talking about teams that are hyped up teams, it is focusing on what could go wrong, or what is new, or what is expected to be better. What if it isn't? What if it does not exceed or go upwards? So that's what you just have to focus on overall when you're talking about these teams.